Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Common64. How you guys doing today? And I'm back with another video today. And today, we're going to be talking about Tom Holland's Spider-Man and why, he just doesn't particularly just feel like Spider-Man. And I know, this is something that many people have pointed out. I'm going to mention some things that I think many people have pointed out. A lot of people have pointed out and such. But, just going to give my thoughts on it. This is something that I've been thinking about for like a couple of years now, actually, since these movies came out. I think after the second one, No Way Home, and I continue to have these thoughts to this day. And I think there are some people out there that have the same thoughts that I do. Now, I am a huge Spider-Man fan. I always have been. Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes. There are some DVDs. And of course, everybody loves Spider-Man. He's a popular figure. He's one of the first things you think about when you think about Marvel. He's an icon. He's a pop culture phenomenon, like Ninja Turtles and, Pokemon and all these other stuff. Scooby-Doo, Thomas the Tank Engine, and, many other franchises. I think he and Batman are top tiers, like the actual mascots for their respective companies. Obviously, yeah. Yeah. And I think Spawn is kind of like that for Image Comics. That's what I think. I don't know. But the point is, Spider-Man, he's a popular character. Everybody loves him. He's, again, like I said, one of the first things you think about when you think about Marvel. He's obviously arguably the mascot. I think we can't deny that. Like what Mario is to Nintendo, Sonic is to Sega, and SpongeBob is basically to Nickelodeon. Yeah, I think you get what I'm saying. But yeah, Spider-Man's a popular character because, why? Because he basically identifies with, the audience, basically. He's this guy, like, first he starts out as a teenager, then he goes into adulthood, like, he starts out as a teenager who struggles with things, and as he get older, when he gets to adulthood, he continues struggles and stuff. And all that stuff, and that's what makes Spider-Man relatable to people. He's like seems like a very simple character at times compared to some other Marvel characters. But I think Blue Beetle could be similar in a way. Yeah, that kind of teenage superhero. Yeah. So, anyways, now we're gonna talk about Tom Holland's portrayal of Spider-Man in the MCU. Why he pretty much just doesn't really feel like Spider-Man. Now, one of the main reasons why he doesn't feel like Spider-Man, but don't get me wrong, Tom Holland, he actually does do a good job portraying Peter Parker. He has done a good job in these movies. These movies are actually pretty good and pretty decent, and I actually still enjoy these movies to this day. And they are fun movies and definitely watchable. But while Tom Holland does do somewhat a good job portraying Spider-Man, but most of the time he doesn't really feel like Spider-Man at times. Well, the good thing that Tom Holland does that nails in Spider-Man is the quirky humor, like the quick stuff, the funny one-liners that Spider-Man is known for, the wisecracking persona that Spider-Man has. Tom Holland, he actually does nail that pretty well. I will give him that. And I think there are stuff he does good too, but I think that's pretty much about it. But one of the main reasons why he doesn't feel like Spider-Man all that much is mainly because the way how he seems to be set up in a way in the MCU. He basically is. I guess you could probably look at him as like a spoiled rich kid, or not a spoiled rich kid, or someone who just gets handed stuff to him on a silver platter or something like that. Because he's always been associated with Tony Stark. Tony Stark recruits him. He gives him this high-tech suit. Suit and stuff. He gives him an iron suit and such. And suits and such, and a suit that has AI stuff and gadgets, stuff like that, And this is pretty much the phase that a lot of people kind of been throwing around. And I guess we can be honest, we can't deny it. Yeah, this is pretty much what it is. He's basically Iron Man Jr., Iron Boy. You know, he just feels like, like Tony Stark's son. He doesn't feel like an actual Peter Parker. It just kind of feels like they just took Peter Parker and tried to decide they're going to make him like an Iron Man Jr. You know, he has all this. Now, I don't want to call him like a spoiled rich kid who has everything handed over to him on a silver platter, but some way it does kind of feel that way. Okay, well, I guess maybe it's probably not a big deal because, hey, you have a superior recruit who's a billionaire and offers you stuff. I guess, of course, you obviously can go ahead and take it, but, But just that, Spider-Man has always known to just always do things on his own and, like, always have to rely on his intellect and stuff to get by. He didn't need, like, expensive gadgets and stuff like that to help him through. Now, sure, I mean, I think in the comics, like, yeah, Tony Stark did recruit Peter Parker, and I think Peter Parker did work for Tony Stark in the comics. And yeah, like, he made the Iron Man suit and such. Now, I know that Spider-Man and, Peter Parker and Tony Stark are best friends. I think they are. I mean, like, in the 90s Spider-Man animated series, Spider-Man said that Iron Man was his close friend, and apparently he was. Yes. And and when Iron Man came back in Secret Wars, he was happy to fight alongside Spider-Man. And Iron Man was even one of the characters that actually defended Spider-Man. Like, when the Thing was like, yeah, hey, you better tell us what's going on or I'm going to clobber you. And Iron Man was first like, hey, stop, I trust Spider-Man's a close friend of mine. You can trust him. Yeah, and he even defended him when the Thing and the Human Torch were pretty much trying to interrogate Spider-Man and you better tell us what's going on here. Yeah, he told the Thing, hey, you better back off, So yeah, Iron Man and Spider-Man are probably really close in the comics. I think they are really close. But here in the MCU, they kind of made him like, Tom Holland and Spider-Man, they pretty much kind of made him Tony Stark's sidekick in a way, or a sidekick character. He's pretty much kind of like Deku from My Hero Academia, This is something I seen from a YouTuber who made a video called "Why Tobey Maguire is the Best Spider-Man," and he did mention some of these things, and I actually agree with him. That video is no longer up, unfortunately. I don't know what happened to it, and apparently the YouTuber, I think he's gone. So I don't really know what happened, but I do remember seeing that video. I saw that video like back in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018. And yeah, because to be honest, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he just kind of feels like a sidekick, basically. Yeah, he basically is Iron Man Jr., or Iron Boy. And and most of his related stuff about him is always going back to Tony Stark. Him trying to, yeah, he's always trying to impress Mr. Stark, and Tony Stark, and stuff like that, and all that stuff. But yeah, he obviously is a sidekick. He could probably just be like, Spider-Man's sidekick, basically. What they could do, they could pretty much just, like, talk about Spider-Man, they can just make him, like, Tony Stark's son, or sidekick, or whatever. Or, okay, the Spider-Man suit, just make me, like, some kind of Iron Man Jr. outfit or something. You can pretty much do that, and I highly doubt anything else would have been different, honestly. He might as well just be, to Tony Stark what Dick Grayson is to Bruce Wayne, the sidekick, Batman and Robin, Iron Man and Spider-Man, or Iron Man and Iron Boy, or Iron Man Iron Jr., or whatever. I think you get what I'm saying. And also, like, the villains that, Tom Holland and Spider-Man face, all of them mainly seem to be connected to Tony Stark in a way, Like, the Vulture, he had a grudge against Tony Stark. I mean, the Avengers, mainly Tony Stark, because he was because he and his crew was trying to salvage some of the alien tech from the Chitauri from the New York attack from 2012 Avengers, and apparently he had permission to salvage all of it. And apparently, I think this lady who works for Tony Stark and the Avengers, like, they came and say, "Oh, yeah, sorry, you can't do that anymore," something like that. And apparently, Adrian Toomes, I think that's his name, he ended up developing a grudge against Tony Stark. And also Mysterio, from No Way Home. He used to be one of Tony Stark's employees, I think, and I think something happened. Tony Stark must have screwed him over or something. Yes. Now it has been a while since I've seen some of these movies, so I might go back and rewatch them, check them out. But yeah, most of these villains always seem to be connected to Iron Man in a way, not Spider Man. Not sure. Most of Spider Man's villains, in general, while they may not seem to have some kind of connection to Spider Man or something, but they do have some kind of motivation to why they go rogue and stuff like that. Yeah, but they had no connection to Iron Man at all, or connection. Sure, Spider Man probably didn't have much a connection in why one of them went rogue in the first place. I mean, the only one I can think of is Eddie Brock, Venom, because Eddie Brock blamed Spider Man for basically ruining his life, and such, So Eddie Brock is pretty much basically the only one I can think of, unless I don't know. Like I don't know if I know Doctor Octavius. Spider Man had no reason to why he became a villain, or Green Goblin. Well, Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, he was being controlled, but I think the Goblin himself, or like Electro and like Rhino. Well, I think most of Spider-Man villains, they just pretty much just became bad for whatever motivation they were given. Their motivation was, but yeah. But in these movies, these villains always seem to be, Mysterio and Vulture. You could probably just make them Iron Man villains, and nothing else would have changed basically. And I think this is kind of similar because Tony Stark, all the villains that he's faced in the MCU were basically, I guess, somewhat from his creations, like people who had like some kind of vendetta against him. Hey guys, I'm back. I'm sorry, I had to cut out because apparently, while I was putting the video, apparently something happened. There was some family drama going on, family issues. I'm not gonna get into it. So unfortunately, yeah, I did cut out right there for a second, and I don't make a lot of videos at times, Sometimes stuff happens, and I apologize for that. Most of the time, it's kind of out of my control, but I try to do the best I can, But back to the video, like I said, most of the villains that the Spider-Man faced and Tom Holland Spider-Man faced are mostly just Iron Man villains, like either they have like some kind of vendetta against him, or like let's say Tony Stark probably screwed him over somehow, and then they want to get like revenge against him for something, So that's what it feels like. Yeah, because most and like in No Way Home, all those villains are basically villains from Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. So I guess there is the Scorpion, but we don't particularly, but we only see him in like the end credit scene, But he's gonna have a bigger role in Spider-Man: Brand New Day, which I'm gonna bring up soon. Yeah. So yeah, those are one of the reasons why Tom Holland his Spider-Man doesn't feel like an act like Spider-Man in general, or act like or Peter Parker. Because with Spider-Man, one of the reasons why we identify with Spider-Man a lot is because of many things, of the struggles he goes through. Like in Spider-Man 2, we see him struggling. We see him go through difficult stuff. He has trouble trying to balancing the job and being a superhero and all this stuff. And his relationship with Mary Jane begins to suffer. We see Peter go through struggles, and because he gets overwhelmed with everything, he just decided he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. But he realized that later on, he has to be Spider-Man because this is what he was probably meant for. Yeah, and like in other incarnations, we do see him struggle a lot. But Tom Holland and I guess Andrew Garfield, we do. I don't know if we see him struggle too much. The Andrew Garfield films, it's been a while since I've seen those, so sorry if I forgot certain things. I do remember some things, but there's just some things I forget. But Tom Holland, he doesn't seem to struggle a lot. I mean, and if he is struggling, he can probably just call Tony Stark to help him out or something. Okay, sure, like, if you have friends in high places, sure, they'll probably help you out. Like with Dragon Ball, like, Chi-Chi, what you probably want, like, Chi-Chi, why don't she, if she needs money so much, why don't she just ask Bulma? Bulma's one of her closest friends. Yeah, so if you have friends in high places, sure, your friends will probably be nice enough to help you out. Or maybe they decided, like, yeah, I'll probably help you out one time, but that's about it. You gotta do everything else on your own. Or they can be like, oh, you can do stuff on your own. But, Tom Holland Spider-Man, that's one of the reasons why I kind of feel like, he does feel like Spider-Man. Like, he can always have, like, Tony Stark, like, bail him out. And, it feels like, he is Iron Man Jr. in a way. Just Iron Man Jr., and in like No Way Home, they asked him. No, I mean Far From Home. I think I got mixed up. I think I mentioned No Way Home over Far From Home. I think I made some confusions right there. I probably think I did, and if I did, I'm so sorry. My bad. But yeah, in Far From Home, they asked him, "Yeah, you're gonna be the next Iron Man," and it probably looks like, he's trying to be the next Iron Man. Like, not Spider-Man in general. Not the wall-crawling, guy who has to figure stuff out on his own and smartness and greatness to pull him through. It just feels like, yeah, he is, yeah, the truth is, guys, he is basically Iron Man Jr. We can't deny that. And that's pretty much what it is. He's just Iron Man Jr. He's not Spider-Man, Spider-Boy, or Spider-Iron Man Jr. Spider-Man. Or he's just he's just Iron Boy or Iron Man Jr. Or how about, they can just call him, if they want to make him a sidekick to Iron Man, they can call him Steel Jr., Steel Man. How about that? I know Steel's probably already taken from Steel to DC character, but yeah, Steel Man, that could still be a name. Yeah, but despite the fact I still enjoy Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I still like his character, and but now that because with Spider-Man Brand New Day, it looks like we are probably gonna get the Spider-Man, the Peter Parker that we've kind of been wanting. Now, sure, I guess on another side, I guess maybe him being Iron Man Jr. probably isn't all that much of a bad thing, because the Spider-Man that we wanted to see struggle and go through all this stuff, we kind of got that with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and so I guess Tom Holland, his version is different, and it's just not too much of a bad thing because MCU, we see that they have do some different stuff, compared to the source material. And even other live-action comic book movie adaptations have done the same thing. So, and heck, how the new Fantastic Four movie, Four Steps that came out this year, basically some people were kind of upset because we have a female Silver Surfer instead of Norman Rad, the male Silver Surfer. But I guess it's not too much of a big deal because, like, Filmmaster Adam, he said in his review of the movie that, we already saw Norman Rad in the 2007 film, It wouldn't hurt just to see something different, like, the female Silver Surfer who's his love interest, actually. So I guess once in a while it's okay to do something different. Mostly depends on the thing. But, Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's still a good character. Tom Holland still does a good job portraying the character, and he's probably going to continue playing the character for the next couple of years until he becomes 40 or 50, and they decide, yeah, and then they'll start maybe recasting him like somewhere in the late 2030s. That's what I think. But other than that, his Spider-Man is still okay. Even though he may not feel like Spider-Man, he still is a fine character nonetheless. And Spider-Man Brand New Day looks like is going to do something great. We're going to have him, like, struggling, going through stuff, And while we are going to see guest appearance from the Punisher and the Hulk, but, at least, there is going to be some good things in it. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing the Scorpion in the movie. And thank God that it's not a multiverse story, because, honestly, it's getting really redundant at this point. Okay, like, multiple storylines, crossovers, let's just put a hold on that for now and just have a regular street-level story. That's cool. I know that some people will prefer something big and massive instead of a boring street-level story, but, street-level stories are actually not really that bad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, the Thunderbolts did kind of feel a little bit somewhat street level, but did kind of feature with the Century. Did kind of make it feel like it was something huge or something. That's what I think. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with some of the things I said about Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man not feeling like Spider-Man? Do you think it's not really a big deal that he's not really like, he's not really like the other incarnations of Spider-Man, and you think it's fine that they do something different once in a while? Well, you can let me know what you guys think. Even though he may be Iron Man Jr., he still has some great moments, and still is a great character nonetheless. So yeah, that was gonna be it for this video. How about this upload later on today? See you guys later. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys later in the next video. This is Comrade64. Sign up, guys. Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Watch out. Here comes the Spider-Man. Here comes the Spider-Man. Alright, later, guys.